Now, this is what blows me away when we talk about worldview clashes. And I'm just going to make it simple between like a Christian worldview and a secular humanist materialist worldview. Let's start with the secular humanist. So here we are. I just put Solomon there for a baseline, 1000 BC. But we have Greek philosophy starting like 585. So let's just say use this as like red will be the secular humanist idea of what is glorious, what is good, and this is our baseline, this timeline. So with Thales, we see the beginning of philosophy until it climbs to these heights of the time of Plato, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, in the Athenian Golden Age. But then it begins to, that's Aristotle, that's Plato. Okay, then we go down, and things begin to descend. We have the Epicureans, the Stoics, right? Neoplatonism, but it begins to descend. And by the time we come into Augustine and the fall of Rome, we enter into, remember, the Dark Ages. And part of why it's dark is because there is almost, you see almost virtually no more philosophizing, these sorts of things. But eventually, after the rediscovery of Aristotle, and they begin to broaden out, they begin to travel, not for necessarily good reasons, but they're still getting this exchange of ideas, worldviews. And we come to the 13th century, and all of a sudden, we have this uptick again of this reason-based philosophy, which leads, by the 15th century, to the Renaissance. And the Renaissance literally means rebirth, and it leads to the modern era. Remember, this period from 1500 to 500, we call the Middle Ages. And the Renaissance, rebirth, these are mostly Christians in Europe, or at least coming in a Christian culture, but they're looking back to the ancient Greeks as their intellectual forefathers. And they see this as kind of like downtime that we're waking up from a slumber. Isn't that fascinating? But, and it's also when you see Renaissance art, you see these weird hybrids of like biblical characters and Greek mythology or Greek philosophers. Fascinating. And so, if, however, you're coming from a Christian worldview, this would be like, remember the 400 years of silence, the Dark Ages, but then we have the glorious dawning when the fullness of time has come with the birth of the Messiah Christ. We have the fall of Rome, but the kingdoms of this world are replaced by the kingdoms of our God. And so this becomes the high point, the age of faith, not the Dark Ages. And then it's after the Crusades and the beginning of reason that we dip back into the darkness.
What's the blue line mean?
That went right in the trash. So it's almost like a mirror image of perspective of worldview. And this has been going on throughout our history. And so this is where we're going to pick up today. But I just wanted to give you like a big picture piece. Oh, thank you for doing that. I wanted to give you a big picture piece of where we're going. But once again, it just keeps getting weirder.